Hi, I'm Vecna, and this is the secret meaning of Stranger Things. What if Stranger Things is not really about a monster invading our world, but about a system feeding on it? What if the final boss distributes the story, sells the story, and trains our attention to crave the next hit? Spoilers ahead. Also, these are my personal interpretations and opinions. I think Stranger Things hands us a key in Season 5, Episode 8, when it revealed Jonathan Byers is going to film school, which to me suggests the creators are using him as a meta voice when he describes his school project. No, it's anti-capitalist. The consumer is a metaphor. The more she eats, the hungrier she gets. I take that moment as a fragile key, a suggested lens. If you put that lens on, the whole series starts to look different. So here is the lens I'm trying on. With that key, the Mind Flayer becomes Netflix, or more precisely, a representation of our capitalist system that eats and grows hungrier. Because the system rewards growth, it needs you to keep consuming. And then the uncomfortable truth. In this reading, the creators of Stranger Things are Vecna. And within the narrative, Vecna frames himself as salvation, but fuses with the Mind Flayer to destroy the world. And we, the audience, become the 12 young children captured by Vecna. Not just victims, but an audience being shaped into tools for destruction. If this is the lens, then we should be cautious about what the story says about itself. Not because the creators are lying in a simple way, but because any story made inside a hunger machine will be trained to speak in ways that keeps the machine alive. I'm thinking of the sentence in episode 7, where Vecna talks to the 12 kids and turns 11 of them into zealots preaching his truth. He frames himself as the savior, not the predator. He pretends he is not a monster, that he is doing this to save the world. But Vecna is the monster in the room, and in my reading, the show quietly admits the possibility that the monster is not only in the story, but in our living rooms. For me, this becomes explicit in episode 8, in the dialogue between Vecna and Will. When talking about the Mind Flayer, Vecna says, "It has never controlled me, and I never controlled it. Don't you see, William? I could have resisted, but I chose to join it." That is the confession the show tells on itself. Not that it is controlled by capitalism, but that joining happens willingly, because joining is rewarded. It has always irritated me how anti-capitalist ideas are presented in big media. Resentment gets recuperated. The stance of being anti-capitalist is capitalized. The critique becomes a feature. The rebellion becomes a product you can buy and feel righteous about. Other examples are films such as Parasite, 2019, The Menu, 2022, and Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery 2022. They critique the system while being distributed as blockbuster entertainment within the system. They sell the feeling of resistance without requiring resistance. Stranger Things goes one step further. It no longer hides the paradox. It shows us the mirror and sells it too. And it all but repeats Vecna's confession. It could have resisted, but it chose to join. And now, for the final small reference that becomes the crescendo of my interpretation. In episode 5, the kids are looking for what Dustin Henderson calls the shield generator, a reference to Return of the Jedi. In Star Wars, the shield generator is needed to be blown up so that they can destroy the Death Star. However, in Stranger Things, it is not a shield, but a bridge between our world and the Mind Flayer, and in the show they call it exotic matter. It is what connects our world to the evil, consuming world. The Star Wars reference matters, because rebellion has a long history of being turned into merchandise. George Lucas is the perfect case study. It should haunt anyone who still believes rebellion is possible within the system. Lucas made THX 1138, a film that feels like a warning about technocratic control, surveillance, and humans reduced to managed units. Then he makes Star Wars, a fantasy of blowing up the Death Star, destroying the Empire, escaping fascistic control. Instead, Star Wars, and by proxy the rebellion, becomes an industry. The critique becomes an engine. The toy, the brand, the empire of merchandise grows so large that the story of fighting the empire starts to look like part of the empire's advertising. And then, in the most symbolic move imaginable, Lucas sells it to a bigger monster. The rebel myth is absorbed into the largest entertainment apparatus on Earth. It is an analogy. The story about resisting the system becomes owned by the system. This is what I mean by media being riddled with recuperation of rebellion. Even when a creator begins with authentic intentions, the machine offers a deal. I will amplify you, but you must become digestible. You must become repeatable. You must become safe enough to sell at scale. And slowly, the original danger is replaced by a controlled simulation of danger. So when Stranger Things references Return of the Jedi and the shield generator, it's not just a cute nerd nod. It is a clue about how media can become a pressure valve for our sedation. It gives us the sensation of resistance just enough to keep us calm. Just enough to keep us consuming. But Stranger Things shifts the symbolism. It is not just a shield. It is a bridge. Call it exotic matter. Call it the link. The point is the same. There is a mechanism that connects us to the monster. So here is the real question. If the world of the Mind Flayer is the world of extraction, addiction and control, then what is the bridge in our world? What is the exotic matter that ties us to capitalism? Sit with that question. The answer is a lot more impactful when you are not told. Thank you for coming so far. This is me trying to hijack all the tools of capitalism to capture your attention and point it towards a project I believe in. Arthemist. Search for it yourself. Do not be led through the door. Walk through it with curiosity and a desire to explore.